Hello everyone, it's Belinda Weaver here and it's time to talk about email sequences. Today in this free training, I'm going to be talking about the art and science of email sequences. So before we get in, because I'm going to be talking about critical sequences that your business has to have, I'm going to be talking about some top tips on how to actually write great sequences. And I'm going to be digging in to one of those critical sequences, right? So jam-packed. Now, I just want to check that we're live and it's working. So if you are watching live, do say hello and let me know that you're there. If you are watching on the replay, leave hashtag replay in the comments. And now, of course, because I'm using StreamYard, you'll have to give StreamYard permission so I can see your name and you won't be a ghost face. Right, so let me just check this out. It looks like it's working. All right, cool. So remember, say hello. Hey there. Hey, Belinda. I just see, this is what I see, Facebook user, but that's okay. I know you're watching. Should we talk about email sequences? Yeah, so how many of you watching have thought about email sequences and maybe shied away? All right, just drop it in the comments if that's you. You've thought about writing email sequences for your business and maybe thought, this makes me a little nervous. I want to hear if that is you. Because I have to admit, that was me, right? When I first started my business as a professional copywriter, I knew email sequences were a thing, but I just didn't think that that was something I could write. They seemed kind of mysterious. They seemed complicated. They seemed like you had to have a lot of experience and skills and know-how in order to even tackle them. So it was just something I put in the, when I'm grown up, I will write email sequences for my business. So what I actually started with was a newsletter. It was a much more curated experience. I used to pull in top tips, favorite tweets, articles I'd liked, and things like that. And I would send that maybe every fortnight. I can't remember. It was such a long time ago. But then I switched up my content marketing game and I started writing blogs every single week. And then I switched that email send to be something that I actually had to do to be an RSS feed. Oh, it was so easy. Every time I put a new blog up, my email tool would send it out to my list, right? And that's essentially a type of email sequence. It happened automatically. I didn't have to do it. And so it was nice and easy. And I just, relaxed into that for a very, very long time. But then I started offering products. My copywriting masterclass for copywriters, my confident copywriting membership, and more recently, my everyday copy course for business owners. Now, when you have products for sale, you have to start thinking about not only nurturing your audience for your services, but nurturing your audience leading up to the launch of a product, assuming that product's not evergreen. And that's where email sequences really get complicated, but they don't have to be, right? So you can see these kind of layers of emails that you're sending your audience. They are levels of complexity, but they all start with a welcome to your list because I don't know where it is. You'll have to find it. When you have something that you're sending to people, work from home life, hang on. When you have something that you're sending to people, a blog, a newsletter, an ebook, anything like that, then you have an email list. And the reason that you want to have an email list is because you own those people, not in a physical sense, of course, but every time we're reacting, like we're reacting on Facebook, like we're reacting on YouTube, we're in someone else's house, right? But when we have an email list, when we have an opt-in box that says, give me your email and I will send you X, then we have those names. Now, we also have permission to email those people, right? That makes email an incredibly powerful marketing tool. It will never be dead. Never listen to anyone who says email is dead, because you have those people, you own those names because they have given you permission to sell you stuff. That is why email is so powerful. But here's the thing, right? Whether you have a newsletter or a blog or you're selling products, right? The moment you welcome someone to your email list is the most important part of that relationship. It is the first impression by which all the other interactions you have together will be judged. So that is the first critical sequence you must absolutely have. How you welcome people into your world, onto your list, into your database, right? So, the second email sequence that your business needs to have is some kind of ongoing nurturing. So, what do I mean by nurturing, right? I want to make sure I'm not using any jargon here. Nurturing is just like a plant, giving it a little bit of love so it grows. That's a relationship. So, when you have people who have given you permission to email you, you want to keep giving them a little bit of love so that they know, like, and trust you. And then they know, like, and trust you enough that when a need arises, they think of you. This is the whole point, because we like to buy from people we like. And that is the point of nurturing. And email is just the coziest way to do that. Yes, social media is fantastic for building relationships, but email is where it's at. So we have a welcome sequence. We have an ongoing nurturing sequence of some sort. Now, that could be emails that you send leading up to a launch, for example. It could be emails that unpack an ebook, for example, or it could be the nurturing through regular content that you send them. Now, the third sequence you must think about in your business is the re-engagement. And the reason that is so important is because hopefully you're list building, you're getting people into your email tool, and you can see those numbers growing and growing and growing. But you should also be looking at how many of those people are opening the emails that you send them and hopefully clicking through to something else. And all the people who are never opening anything from you, you're paying for those people, right? They're called cold subscribers. And you should be going through a regular process of getting them out of your email tool. And that hurts. You think, but the number's so big. My total subscriber count is so big. But if people aren't opening your emails, don't have them on your list. Because when you have a great big fat list, thousands and thousands of people, but only a handful of those are opening your emails, your open rates, your bounce rates, all the stats of your email tool are looking at to say that you're not a spammer. They're all disproportionately affected by that. So it's better to have a smaller list of people who are really engaged in your content than a great big fat list with no one reading. So the re-engagement sequence are the emails that you send to people going, hey, you haven't opened anything in a while. Do you want to stay? If not, totally cool. Just unsubscribe. That's the heart of a re-engagement sequence. But there's a few little tricks to it. Like, you can offer them a gift. You can remind them why they subscribed. You can remind them of something amazing that's happened recently that you shared. Basically, you're trying to get them interested in your emails again. That is a re-engagement sequence, right? So the three critical sequences your business must have is a welcome sequence, some kind of ongoing nurturing process, and a re-engagement sequence that you do regularly, right? And so when it comes to writing email sequences, actually, before we get into that, how many of people here have some of those? Let me know. Welcome, ongoing, re-engagement. Put it in the comments so I can see which of these you already have. And I'm just going to check the comments over here so I can see. Hi, Shauna. Hi, Sarah. Hey, Trevor. Right, so let me know which of these you already have. And maybe you want to drop in the comments, I got none. I got none. That's totally okay. All right. Okay. some admissions here, but I want to talk about how do you actually go about mapping out some email sequences, right? And the first thing you need to do is you need to be really clear about your objectives, right? What is the point of the email sequence that you are creating? Is it orienting people and setting expectations? That's your welcome sequence, right? Are you unpacking a lead magnet, an ebook, a guide, a checklist that someone has downloaded? Are you leading people towards a launch, right? Are you leading people to an event, a thing, a happening? Or are you looking at ongoing connection building, right? So that's your nurturing sequence. So when you're thinking like, this is my welcome sequence, I need to welcome them in, have a great first impression, set the expectations, and then I'm transitioning into a nurture sequence. Great. That is what you're doing. All right. The next one might be nurturing, leading up to a launch. They've downloaded an ebook. I'm going to unpack the content in the ebook as the know, like, and trust nurturing. And then I'm going to pivot them into a pre-launch sequence that leads up to your course launch or your product opening or your event, right? So be really clear about what it is you're doing and what it is the objective of that piece, what it is you need it to do. And then the other thing I just mentioned, I don't know if you caught it, is what happens next. That's another important part about mapping out your sequence. So who it's for and what it needs to do, and also what happens next. You need to be really clear on those when you're mapping out your email sequence. Then you also need to map it out before you write. Okay, that's the next stage. This is with all your copywriting. And that means working out what it is you need to say. And this ties back to your objectives. And from there, you have a bit of a map of how many emails. You do not need to send 10 emails if everything you need to say can be done in 5. A welcome sequence does not need to be 10 emails. It can be 2 or 3. So you need to kind of look at what it is you need to say, which means how do I get someone from here to here through emails? And you map out how many emails you need and the key messages in each email, right? So as a copywriter, this is how I start an email sequence project. This is the strategy that I give to my clients. I'm like, here's the email map. How does this sit? That's the first thing I get approved. Because there's no point starting to write emails if you haven't got a very clear idea about what goes in each email, right? So step 1 is be clear about your objective and what happens next. Step 2, map it out before you start writing. Now, when it comes to timing, here's a little cheat. How many of you know the Fibonacci sequence? It's a math thing, right? That's all I'm going to tell you because that's all I know. But no, it's a sequence of numbers that has a very predictable order. It goes 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. And so it goes on, right? And there's, the numbers add up together. 2 numbers add up together to give you the next number. 2 numbers add up to give you the next number. I'm sure some maths people would be utterly horrified at the explanation I just gave, but that's it. And you know what? It's the cheat that many email marketers use on their timing. So here it is. When someone subscribes, they get an email. That's day 1. So the email sequence is 1, 1, 2, 3. So email, day 1, you get an email. Day 1, you get another email. Day 2, you get an email. Day 3, you get an email. The next number is 5. Day 5, you get an email. And you might, hopefully you've noticed, hang on, there's a couple of emails on day 1. Yes, that's because when I give you my email, I am the most interested I am going to be in hearing from you. So that welcome sequence needs to be there. It needs to be good. And you get to send someone more emails in the beginning, and then you start to peter out, right? So the emails become less and less frequent the longer they're in the sequence, but they kind of bunch up at the beginning because someone is the most interested they're going to be as soon as they give you their email address, right? So Google a Fibonacci sequence in terms of maths and use that to map out your timing. And the last tip I want to give you is to show your personality, right? This is, each email you send to people is a little conversation. It's in their inbox. It's just you and them, and you have their attention. Sure, there might be 100 other things going on, but this is a chance for you to not be boring, right? To show your personality, to express yourself, to not worry about sounding unprofessional, because when people worry about sounding unprofessional, they end up sounding really freaking boring. Now, that doesn't mean you need to be wacky or anything like that, but emails are a chance for you to show your personality. And you can show them in a couple of ways. You can show them in the words that you use. You can show it in the content that you include, but you can also show it in the images you include and whether or not you use GIFs or emojis, right? There's lots of different ways you can show your personality in your emails, and I highly encourage you to lean into it, because the people reading who connect with that will connect with it strongly, and that is what you want in your emails, right? So I just want to recap. The critical sequences are your welcome sequence, some kind of ongoing nurturing sequence, and a re-engagement sequence that you run at least once a year to clear your inbox out. And when you are writing your sequences, you need to sit down and be clear about the objectives of that sequence, because the objectives give you a clue about what you need to say. You need to be clear about what happens after the sequence, right? And you absolutely need to map it out before you start writing. How many emails and what you're going to say in each email, because it is a hell of a lot easier to move some bullets around than it is to rewrite entire sequences, right? And then when it comes to timing, use the Fibonacci sequence. Send more emails in the beginning and then start spreading them out. And of course, lean into showing your personality, and there's lots of different ways that you can do that. Now, who would be interested in having some tips on writing a great welcome sequence? Me. But let me know. Drop it in the comments. And remember, if you're watching the replay, #replay, you can still say yes, right? I'm going to pretend you're saying yes. So the welcome sequence, as I said, it's the first impression. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah says me. It's the first impression someone has. I get your lead magnet, or I want your blogs. I'm interested in what you're all about, and I want to hear more. And I'm prepared for you to visit my inbox. So I give you my email address, right? The first email that I get is usually confirm your subscription. It's called a double opt-in. And what it means is I say, yes, I want to hear from you. Here is my email address. I have to go to my inbox and I have to say yes again. 2 yeses, double opt-in. And what that means is I'm agreeing that I have said I want you to email me, so you are not a spammer, right? If someone marks you as a spammer, it is not good for your emails, right? Because Gmail, Outlook, all those kind of email tools will determine what you're all about and put you in different tabs. So your goal as an emailer is to make sure that people have given you permission, but you also want to get people to start replying to your emails. As soon as people start replying to your emails, you move from the promo tab to the primary tab, or the social tab to the primary tab. You want engagement with your emails to get into that primary tab. Now that's Gmail language. Outlook might have something different, right? But you want that from the very go. So the first email is someone saying, confirm your subscription. Make it fun. We all see those emails all the time. So if you can make it a bit more interesting, you've got me in the hook, right? Then the next email you send immediately after they say yes is to basically go, you just made an awesome decision. This is the first email in your welcome sequence. Acknowledge their awesomeness. Reinforce that the decision they just made was a really, really smart one, because it doesn't matter if I've given you my email address or my credit card. People immediately have feelings of regret, right? Even if they're really excited. It's natural for the lizard brain to come up and go, oh, I don't know about that. Maybe it's a scam. Maybe it's going to be shit. I don't know. So what you want to do is immediately reinforce that it was a smart decision, that it was a right decision. You also want to set the expectations about what happens next, right? Tell them what they are signing up for. It could be your blog, it could be a newsletter, it could be a course, it could be that ebook, but remind them what it is that they're getting, right? And then the last thing in that first email is some kind of self-selection. Because remember I said you need people to engage you with your emails if you want to get to the tab that, people are actually going to read. So you want them to click something. You also want to find out a little bit about your reader. So self-selection is when email tools say, click one of these options that best describes you. In mine, I say, are you a business owner who writes their own copy? Are you an aspiring copywriter? Are you a working copywriter? Are you an experienced copywriter? Are you someone else entirely, right? I want to know, because then I can curate the kind of content that I send you accordingly. But it also means you're clicking on something and the email tool goes, oh, she got a click. All right, good value. So that first email, acknowledge their awesomeness, reinforce that it was the right decision, remind them of what it is that they just agreed to and why it's awesome, and get them to click something that lets you tag them in your email tool, right? Email two. I like, if it's an ebook or a thing, right? I like the second email to be a did you get it okay, right? Because people skip the links, they don't get the files, they don't download the thing, whatever. So I like to give them another opportunity and remind them of the awesomeness of what it is they opted in for. Did you get the thing? If not, here's another link. And remember, this is what it is, and this is how it's going to change your life, right? But if you haven't got a thing that they downloaded or that they opted in for, I like the second email to be an introduction of me. Let me introduce myself, right? Because they might have only just heard of you before giving your email address. Maybe they've stalked you on the internet for a few years. So whether it's email 2 or it's email 3, introduce yourself. And this is your permission to show a lot of your personality. What do you like? Why did you start your business? Where do you live? Do you drink coffee or tea? I like to make it a little bit about my experience and my credibility, and then a lot of fun, right? Because I like to ask people, what do we have in common? And this is also when you can invite a reply. Tell me a little bit about you. You might ask a leading question. What's your biggest frustration right now? Or you might do what I do. What do we have in common? I love finding out what I have in common with people who read my emails. So that's email 2. Did you get it okay? Email 3, let me introduce myself. Email 4 or 3, depending where we're at, is this is what happens now, right? And that might be you switching in to the nurturing. You might start unpacking the ebook that they downloaded. You might go on to explain how to use the checklist that you gave them. Or you might start going into the regular content, right? Maybe it's your regular newsletter or blog. This is where we switch into the ongoing things. Yeah? So that's it. Email 1, acknowledge their awesomeness, reinforce that they've made the right decision and remind them what they get them to segment themselves by clicking something. Email 2, introduce yourself and get them to reply. Email 3, transition into something else, right? So my welcome sequences are shift between 2 emails and 3 emails, 2 to 3. Sometimes that's it. Sometimes it transitions then into a longer sequence. But I want you to take the pressure off writing a huge welcome sequence, right? Just a couple of emails. Set the expectations, make them feel good, and introduce yourself. So let me know if you could do that, because I notice, a few people were like, I haven't got any of these, right? Let me know if that's something that you feel confident creating for your business. And I want to remind you that when it comes to email sequences, these are built up in layers. You don't need a 20 email sequence right from the get-go. Get the welcome sequence right. And then start to build it up. Excellent. Shauna says, this has made it so much clearer. You're welcome. I think the problem we have is, there we go. I think the problem we have is that we overcomplicate it and we overthink it. A really good nurturing sequence, a really profitable sales sequence does require skill and strategy, but it's not impossible. You break these things down in smaller and smaller steps. But start with the easy stuff. The low-hanging fruit is a welcome sequence. So Sarah asked, what's the difference between newsletters and emails? So the newsletter is the type of content. Email is how you send it. You could create a newsletter and print it off and post it to people. That's how they used to do it in the olden days, right? So email marketing is simply the content that you send out via email. You might send an email, you might send a newsletter by email, you might send your blog by email, you might just send helpful tips by email. So for me, I don't have the RSS attached to my blog anymore that automatically sends all my weekly blogs. I do have a weekly newsletter that sends all the best bits from the free Facebook group for the love of copy. And I put that together and I send it by email. But when someone has said, I am interested in your Confident Copywriting membership, tell me more, that puts them into a welcome sequence that then goes on to a nurturing sequence that tells them what Confident Copywriting is all about. And then they get the newsletter while they're waiting for it to open. And then before I launch, we start a pre-launch sequence, and then it goes into a sales sequence, right? So lots of little sequences that can keep someone connected to me and interested in what's coming up for months and months and months. And that is the power of email sequences, keeping people connected with you and what you're doing. But I will also say, you have to make them relevant. You have to make them valuable. You have to send them frequently enough that I don't forget about who you are. And you have to make them interesting. So lean in to what you love about your business, tap into your passion, share your personality, and they will definitely be more interesting. All right, so that is all the things I had to say. I would love, if you do not have an email sequence, I would love you to pledge to write one, because just do the rewind, go back. It's a lot easier than you think. It's really just introducing yourself, setting expectations, and getting people to reply to you. Remember, that is how you have an engaged email subscriber. Sarah says, mapping out emails, something I learned today. You are most welcome. There is always more to learn, but I hope this has been a taster and made emails a little less scary. But I just want to highlight, like all your copywriting, get really clear on who you're writing to, get really clear on what it's for. Map it out before you start writing, and also think about what happens next. All right, so I hope you have a fabulous day. I will see you all very soon.